Hello students, so I'm back now with the same chapter, the enemy. This is second video. So in the first video we learned that Dr. Sudao, he was standing and looking at the beauty of the sea, vast sea, and then only Hannah came, wife came, and he started thinking about how he had met Hannah and how he was actually not interested to go to that get together where he had found Hannah. So now we are starting from page number 26. The scene is Sadao and Hannah are standing together, enjoying the weather and enjoying the beauty of the vast sea. And Sadao is still thinking about that meeting when he had met Hannah. And this is basically for the readers. Okay, so you have to read it properly because you may also get this question about this meeting. Okay, now page number 26, first para. Now he felt her hand on his arm and was aware of the pleasure it gave him, even though they had been married years enough to have two children. Means even after two children, they are still madly in love with each other. They still love each other. Okay. For they had not married heedlessly in America. What do you think? Why he feels that still there is love? Okay. Why? Because it's not that it was a love marriage or he had liked Hannah and then he proposed. Actually, it's not that they had married in a haste. No, they took time, okay, to know each other and then only they had got married, and that's why the love was still there. They had finished their work at school and had come home to Japan. Means both of them, they first of all finished their education and then they returned back to Japan. And when his father had seen her, the marriage had been arranged in the old Japanese way, although Sadao and Hannah had talked everything over beforehand. Now, when they came back, then he might have told about Hannah to his father. Then his father, when he was convinced that the girl is pure, means she's pure in race, means she's really a Japanese girl, then only the father might have said yes. Okay, and the marriage also took place in very traditional way, though beforehand only they had met each other, but still the marriage took place. Okay, after the father only said yes. They were perfectly happy, and after marriage, they were very happy couple. She laid her cheek against his arm. Now, this is what Sadao was thinking about all this, about the meeting, how they had met, how the father had approved their marriage, and this way only they got married. And because everything was arranged in a proper way, the marriage was traditional marriage. Okay, the marriage took place in a very traditional way, Japanese way, though they were modern enough to meet each other, okay, before even marriage. But now they were perfectly happy married couple. She laid her cheek against his arm. Now, when they are standing together, suddenly something happens. It was at this moment that both of them saw something black come out of the mist. And suddenly they saw that from the water, because it was mist already, we have read, okay, there was fog, and even then they saw that something came out of water. Because of fog, maybe they could not understand initially that what was it, but they saw something. It was a man. Maybe next moment only they got to realize that it was a human being. It was a man. He was flung up out of the ocean. Flung. Suddenly he jumped out. Okay, this is what it seemed, that something jumped out of water. It seemed to his feet by a breaker. It seemed as if this man had maybe hit against a breaker, and that's why he had jumped out. He staggered a few steps, his body outlined against the mist. Now they saw that the man was maybe trying to walk, okay, crawl. though it was foggy, even then they could judge this outline only, means they could see only outline, means some human being they could not recognize, okay, because of fog. His arms above his head, then he curled mist. Then the curled mist hid him again. Who is that? Hannah cried. She dropped Sadau's arm and they both leaned over the railing of the veranda. Now, where they were standing, they just tried to lean over, okay, just to see who this man was. Because of the fog, they were not able to see the things clearly. Now they saw him again. The man was on his hands and knees crawling. And now only they saw that man actually had fallen down, and now he was crawling only. The man was on his hands and knees, crawling. Then they saw him fall on his face and lie there. A fisherman, perhaps, Sadao said, washed from his boat. He ran quickly down the steps, and behind him Hannah came, her white sleeves flying. A mile or two away, on the either side, there were fishing villages. But here was only the bare and lonely coast, dangerous with rocks. The surf beyond the beach was spiked with rocks. Somehow, the man had managed to come through them. He must be badly torn. Actually, now what they thought? They thought that maybe, sorry, they thought that this may be some fishermen who might have gone for fishing, but because the weather is very bad, he might have maybe fallen into water or something might have happened, and that's why maybe he had flown towards this side. Because on the either side, within 1 or 2, we can say miles away, there are fishing villages, and that's why they thought that maybe it must be fishermen, and that's why they ran for his help. They saw when they came toward him that indeed it was so. It was so means yes, he was injured person. The sand on one side of him had already a stain of red soaking through. Now why they thought that yes, it is injured person only? Because they saw that on the sand there were drops of blood. So it was clear that the man was injured. He is wounded, Sadao exclaimed. He made haste to the man, who lay motionless, his face in the sand. An old cap stuck to his head, soaked with sea water. He was in wet rags of garments. Sadao stopped, Hannah at his side, and turned the man's head. They saw the face. A white man, Hannah whispered. Now they saw the head also. They saw that the man's clothes were very old and tattered. Okay. Then they just went near him and they saw that this man was not fisherman. This man was not Japanese. Rather, he was an American, a white man. Yes, it was a white man. The wet cap fell away, and there was his wet yellow hair, long as though for many weeks it had not been cut, and upon his young and tortured face was a rough yellow beard. He was unconscious and knew nothing that they did for him. Now this man was unconscious, and the hair showed that maybe he had not gone for haircut or for shaving. The clothes were looking very dirty and torn, and they were not able to understand, first of all, who this man could be. Okay, and whatever now they were going to do, actually man was unconscious. He did not know anything about it. Now Sadao remembered the wound, and now suddenly Sadao remembered that wound. Because why he remembered the wound? Because he had seen the blood stain, okay, blood on the sand. So naturally it was clear that the man is wounded. And now because he was a doctor, he just thought about the wound. And with his expert fingers, he began to search for it. Actually, he just started putting his hand on the body and trying to search that where the wound is. Blood flowed freshly at his touch, and at one point, when he touched, the blood came out, and he knew that okay, this is the area of the wound. Maybe there was sand all over the body, that's why he was not able to see the wound clearly, first of all. On the right side of his lower back, now underline, you may need to write in any answer. Okay. On the right side of his lower back, Sadao saw a gun wound had been reopened. So what he noticed now, that it was a gun wound which had reopened. Okay, maybe the gun wound was there, it was old gun wound, and that's why maybe it was maybe on the healing site, but now it showed that it was again reopened. The flesh was blackened with the powder. So why first of all he got to know that this is gun wound? Because the flesh was blackened, and he knew this is because of gunpowder only. Some time, not many days ago, the man had been shot and had not been tended. As a doctor, he knew that it means this is old wound, but maybe he never applied any medicine on the wound. This it showed. It was bad chance that the rock had stuck the wound. And now why it reopened? Because this was the rocky site, and maybe he flowed in water towards this site, and that's why due to some rock, the point of some rock might have reopened the wound, and that's why now again blood had started coming. Oh, how he's bleeding, Hannah whispered again in a solemn voice. Solemn means very serious voice. The mist screened them now completely, and at this time of the day, no one came by. The fishermen had gone home, and even the chance beachcombers would have considered the day at an end. Now suddenly they realized, okay, this is white man, and then they saw that there was nobody else on the beach. Why there was nobody else? Actually, because the bad weather, the fishermen might have gone back, okay, or they might not even have come out of their homes. And if we talk about beachcombers now, who are beachcombers? Beachcombers you might have seen on the beaches that people are selling small things, okay, petty things. So these people are also not there. So there was nobody on the beach at that time when they were standing near the white man. What shall we do with this man? Sadao muttered. But his trained hands seemed of their own will to be doing what they could to stanch the fearful bleeding. Stanch means here to stop. Now, because he was a doctor, he got the wound and he was trying to stop the bleeding. And while doing this, maybe for a second, he forgot that this is enemy. He was doing his job. And then only he asked, now what to do with this man? Okay, though he had already trying to stop the bleeding. He packed the wound with the sea moss that strewed the beach. So this is what was available. So this is what he did. Okay, with the sea moss only, he packed the wound so that the blood should not come out. The man moaned with pain in his stupor, but he did not awaken. Stupor means very deep sleep. And man was in deep sleep means man was unconscious. But maybe when he was putting the moss on the wound, he felt the pain but remained unconscious, and he maybe groaned with pain. The best thing that we could do would be to put him back in the sea, Sadao said, answering himself. Though he only asked this question of what to do, then after a few seconds he himself only answered, I think this is enemy and we should put him back in water because we cannot help any enemy. Now that the bleeding was stopped for the moment, he stood up and dusted the sand from his hands. Yes, undoubtedly, that would be best, Hannah said steadily, but she continued to stare down at the motionless man. Even Hannah said, yes, I think this is the best thing we can do. Put him back in water. Though she also kept standing. She did not touch the man to put him back in water. If we sheltered a white man in our house, we should be arrested. And if we turned him over as a prisoner, he would certainly die, Sadao said. Now Sadao was still thinking what to do. Though they had already this option to put him back in water, but maybe they were not mentally ready to do this thing. So Sadao said, see, if we shelter him, then we will be arrested, okay, because this is enemy. And if we call army and hand him over to the army, even then he would die. Why? Because he seemed to be prisoner of war, because he's enemy. He had got the wound. It means he might have tried to escape. When he tried to escape, then only he might have got this wound. Okay. So it was sure that Japanese army will not maybe even provide any doctor or will not take care of the wound. So that's why he thought that maybe he would die even in the cell, in the prison house also. The kindest thing would be to put him back into the sea. Then Hannah said, then I think this is the only thing we can do. Okay, that we should put him back in water. If God wants to save him, maybe he will be saved. But neither of them moved. They were staring with a curious repulsion upon the inert figure. Inert means which is not moving. Okay, because this man was unconscious, he was not moving. They just kept on looking, but nobody could take any decision. What is he? Hannah whispered. There is something about him that looks American, Sadao said. He took up the battered cap. Yes, there almost gone was the faint lettering, a sailor, he said, from an American warship. He spelled it out, US Navy. The man was a prisoner of war. Now from the cap, it was clear that this man was a prisoner of war, because this man was in US Navy and he was maybe arrested. He was put in Japanese jail, but when he tried to escape, maybe from the back only, he got the bullet. He has escaped, Hannah cried softly, and that's why he's wounded. In the back, Sadao agreed. They hesitated, looking at each other. Then Hannah said with resolution, "Come, are we able to put him back into the sea?" "If I am able, are you?" Sadao said. Now both were not able to decide. Okay, Hannah was thinking that Sadao can do this. Sadao was thinking that maybe Hannah can do this. But both were not in a position to do this, to put him back in water, because the man was unconscious. Putting him back in water again means maybe putting him for the death only. Okay, that's why they were not able to do so. Sadao hesitated again. "The strange thing is," he said, "that if the man were whole, I could turn him over to the police without difficulty." Now, actually, because Hannah and Sadao both were not able to put him back in water, now Sadao is trying to give answer to himself only, that why he is not able to do anything. The best thing would be, as a patriot, what he should have done. He should have called the army and hand him over to the army. But here he is trying to explain himself that actually if the man were not wounded, then certainly I would have called army, okay, and he would have been arrested. I care nothing for him. Okay, he says, because I don't care for this American. He's my enemy, this is all. But the thing is, he's wounded. That's why I'm thinking what to do. He's my enemy. All Americans are my enemy. And he's only a common fellow. You see how foolish his face is. But since he's wounded. Actually, he says, I would have done it to hand him over to the police or to the army. But the thing is, this man is wounded. Though this man is nothing to me, he is American and all Americans these days my enemies. Okay, but because this man is wounded, that's why I'm thinking now what to do. You also cannot throw him back into the sea, Hannah said. Then there is only one thing to do. We must carry him into the house. She said, okay, if you are not able to put him back in water, then we can do only one thing. Let's take him home. Okay, this is what we can do. But the servants, Sadao inquired. Servants said, okay, we can take him home, but what about the servants? Because servants are also there and maybe they may not agree that we give shelter to any enemy. We must simply tell them that we intend to give him to the police, as indeed we must. She says, don't worry, we will tell them that because he is wounded, that's why he is here. Okay, after he is healed, then naturally we will be calling the police and we will hand him over to the army or police. And this is what we will do naturally. We must think of the children and your position. It would endanger all of us if we did not give this man over as a prisoner of war. She says we should remember only one thing, that you are a renowned doctor. We have a family. So naturally we cannot do this with our country, that we hide some enemy. We are not going to hide him. Okay, we just want to treat him, and after the treatment, certainly we would be calling the army to get him arrested. And this is what we can tell our servants. This way maybe servants will also be convinced. So I think today in this video this much is okay. Okay, now maybe you will get that tempo and you will be able to understand the next coming videos also. One suggestion I would give, that whenever you are watching this video, keep your book and pen in your hand. Okay, when you are watching my video, listening to me, keep your eyes on the book. Wherever I say mark it then and there only. Okay, it's not that you just watch it as a movie. No, when you are watching the video, keep your book in hand and take it as a class is going on. Then only you will get the best result. Thank you.